You know, we quite often get a question of, should I be taking advantage of the cafeteria plan that they offer me at work? I'm not talking about going downstairs and eating at the restaurant. I'm talking about the benefit that's available to you as an employee to do some things called pre-tax deductions. Now, these cafeteria plans go by many names, but they're the same thing in all cases. A cafeteria plan can also be called a 125 plan, or a flex plan, or a pop plan. But they all mean the same thing. It means that you go to your employer and you tell your employer, when the employer has a cafeteria plan in place, that you would like to use some money before tax to pay, for example, your babysitting costs, your medical costs, your adoption costs, or whatever your employer makes available to you. Here's how a cafeteria plan works. Let's say your salary is $50,000 a year. The way our system works is, out of that $50,000, you're going to pay Social Security and Medicare of about 7.5%. So 7.5% of $50,000 is $3,500. You're also going to pay federal income tax of, let's just say 10%, to choose a nice easy number. All right. And let's say you pay a state income tax of about 5%. All right. So if you add that up, on 50 grand, you're paying 10% federal, 5% state, that's 15, and another 7.5% for Social Security and Medicare tax. So you're paying around 22.5%, 23% of federal and state income taxes. Let's round that up to a flat 25% of tax money that comes out of every check that you make. Now, of course, many Americans have a higher tax bracket. A few working Americans have a lesser tax bracket, but we'll use that number. If you make 50 grand a year and you spend $3,000 for babysitting and $2,000 for medical costs, here's what happens. You make 50 grand. You spend 25% of that right off the top, or $12,500, which leaves you $37,500. 50 grand minus the 25% that we've said is going to apply to taxes of $12,500 leaves you $37,500. Out of that $37,500, you spend $3,000 for babysitting. That leaves you $34,500. You spend $2,000 for medical. That leaves you $32,500 in your pockets to run your home at the end of the year. All right. With a cafeteria plan, you go to your employer and say, instead of paying me 50 grand, I would like you, Madam or Mr. Employer, to pay before tax my child care expenses at 3 grand and my my medical expenses at 2 grand. So instead of making 50, I make 45. I'm going to pay 25% tax on that. Now, what's 25% of $45,000? It's roughly 11 grand. 45 grand minus 11 equals 34,000. Where'd I come up with that again? I said 50 grand, pay my expenses before tax, leaves me 45, pay tax on 45, that leaves me 34,000. Now remember, a minute ago, if I paid it with after-tax money, I only had 32,500 left. By doing it pre-tax, I have $34,000 left. Folks, I made $1,500 by participating in my employer's cafeteria plan. These are fantastic benefits that nearly every American needs to be aware of. Are there disadvantages to the cafeteria plan or the 125 plan? Sure. Of course, your employer has to have one set up before you can participate. And it has to be a written plan that they've got to give to everybody. Second, when you go to your employer and you tell them to lower your income to pay, for example, $3,000 worth of babysitting expenses, if you don't incur $3,000 worth of babysitting, you don't get that money back. Now, you can ask your employer to carry it over to the next year, so it's called the use it or lose it rule, which Congress has allowed us to carry some of that to the next year if the plan allows it. But what it basically means is, if you know you're going to have babysitting this year, there's really no downside. If you know you're going to have some medical expenses, you need to have some of it pre-tax. Are you asking me then, are you in favor of utilizing a cafeteria plan? We have one here. I strongly recommend it to all of our employees. I participate in it as well, even though, of course, I don't have babysitting costs anymore. I do have some of those other costs. So, cafeteria plan, 125 plan, whatever you wish to call it. Should you do it? Absolutely. Talk to us at the office about questions about maybe the extent of participation that we have. but we firmly and strongly recommend that, yes, you participate in pre-tax, cafeteria, or 125 plans. Feel free to call us with questions, and until next time, thanks so much for watching.